How you doing?
All right, so what do we got here?
A couple of World War I knives. Very cool too, by the way.
Yeah, these are some badass knives. Can you imagine getting, like, hammered in the face with this?
Oh, I like this one better where you can, this is called a skull buster. You get whacked in the head and then they punch you and then they slice your neck. I like that. Coming into the pawn shop today to try to sell my knives, my cool, antique World War I knives.
So where did you get these things?
This one I got from an estate sale probably about 2 or 3 years ago. This one I got from another estate sale probably about a year later.
So do you know anything about them, or?
Not really. World War I, that's all I know.
Well, I can definitely tell you it's pre-World War II because it's pretty common to find knuckle guards on weapons like this. You have to understand, they'd jump in that trench, it was no rifle going, it was punch, stab, punch, stab. And that's just the way they fought. This knife predates World War II because this type of blade was banned right after the Geneva Convention.
Why is that?
Well, you see, it was the Geneva Convention that you had to have a standard blade, so when they cut you with it, they could just stitch you up.
Isn't stabbing? Does it really matter? I mean, really seriously, does it matter?
According to the Geneva Convention, you are not allowed to have a knife with more than 2 sides on it, because when you have 3 sides on it, it's not a clean wound. And it's very hard to stitch up, and it's much more likely to get an infection. The problem with this one says USA right here. However, I have never heard of the US government issuing a blade like this. This one looks completely authentic. The problem is, I've never heard of the maker Ulion. What do you want to do with these? Pawn them or sell them?
Well, I mean, if the money's right, I'd like to sell them.
Okay. I'd really like to get these knives, but just like in any other business, make an uninformed decision, you're gonna lose money.
So how do you authenticate these things?
I have a friend. He's an expert in military knives. I'd like to set up an appointment with you. You can come back. He'll take a look at them. He'll tell us what they're worth. Maybe we can make a deal.
Sounds good.
All right. These are the World War I knives I called you about.
All right.
I would like to know the story behind these knives. First of all, how they were made, where they were made, blah, 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 like that. But, I mean, I just really want to know exactly what they're worth.
What are your concerns with them?
All right, the one you're holding here, there's a brand on the blade that says Olion, and I'd never heard of them. The problem I have with this one, I never even heard of the U.S. having a blade like this.
My name's Dean, and I'm an expert in antique U.S. military edged weapons. So this one is called a Mark I trench knife. And 1918 is when they were first manufactured by Olion, a French manufacturer, and any infantryman would be issued this knife if he were going into theater where they were fighting in the trenches. And if you can imagine being punched in the face with one of these, it would disable you, and that was the intent. That's it for the 1918 Olion.
Okay.
Right? This particular knife, if it is original, should have a triangular blade, and it does. This knife was actually the first military knife consigned during World War I. And it is so named the 1917-1918 trench knife. Now, this particular knife is manufactured by the American Cutlery Company. And the primary specification in that which is quoted is that it must have the capability of penetrating the German trench coats.
The term trench coat comes from World War I because it was trench warfare. They were thick wool jackets. Not only would wool jackets keep you warm when it was wet, it was also extremely difficult to pierce with a normal knife.
The military wanted a knife, a weapon that would penetrate that trench coat, and this was the design that came
I
out.
imagine it's like a giant ice pick.
I told you it was cool, man.
So the big question, how much are they worth?
Well, the 1918 Olion is a pretty rare manufacturer. The one thing that I don't like about it is the fact that it's been covered with varnish.
People are constantly destroying the value of their antiques because all of a sudden they're restoration experts. Don't do it.
I would value this at about $175.
I can't see that having varnish on it brings it down, and that really disappoints me because I thought it was worth a lot more money, being they're 90 years old.
The American Cutlery knife, it's in really nice shape. It's probably a $225 to $250 knife.
Okay. Thanks for coming in, Dave.
Rick, I appreciate it. As always, it's a pleasure.
All right,
Thank
thanks.
you
It's
very
great
much.
to meet you,
Thank
too.
you.
Thank you.
Now I know a lot more about the knives, and I know what they're worth. Only thing is now, what am I gonna have to pay for them? So what do you want for them?
I'd like to see $350.
Dean said these were worth $475. And basically what I can do is 250.
Too low. Can you go 350?
Best I can do is 250.
Nah, I can't do that. Can you 300? Can you at least give me 300 for him?
251.
You know what, forget it.
It's just a matter of economics.
No, I understand. I'm gonna keep him.
All right. Sorry we couldn't do business. Thanks for coming in, man.
Not a problem, thank you very much. You know what, I'm just gonna keep him at home and just enjoy him for a while, and my daughter can have him later on in life. I don't care, but I'm not selling him for $251. He can kiss my butt.
What can I help you with?
I have this signed picture.
Benjamin Harrison. Hey, Corey. It's like your great-great-uncle twice removed from your second cousin.
Do you really believe we're actually related to that guy?
Grandpa says we were.
I've met your grandfather, and he was a liar.
It was given to my dad when he was a young child, so it's been in a box for about 70 years. My parents just celebrated their 60th wedding anniversary, and I would like to send them on a trip if possible. I'm really hopeful that this is going to be my lucky day.
You know your grandfather's middle name is Benjamin, and your great-grandfather's middle name was Benjamin. They were named after him, I believe.
Whatever.
You see any resemblance?
I do.
Yeah, he's bald, and he's got a gray beard.
All in all, a pretty good president. He passed the Sherman antitrust law to try and beat up the monopolies, but it was another 20 years later with Teddy Roosevelt who really started cleaning up the trusts. Where did you get it?
Well, we had it in our family for about 70 years. It was part of a photo album, and this one was signed.
Okay, this is a cabinet card. They were pretty popular from like the late 1860s to right around 1900. So a lot of people had the picture of the president in their house. How much do you want for it?
500.
I doubt if that's a signature. I'm just assuming it's someone just wrote it on there so they know who it was.
I mean, that looks like a signature.
Well, remember, they didn't print anything. Everything was written. I'll call somebody down here, but if it's not a signature, it's worth like 10 bucks. All right?
Okay, thank you.
Most cabinet cards aren't worth the paper they're printed on. So normally, this would be a pass. But a cabinet card actually signed by a president, now that's a different story. And not just because, supposedly, I'm related to this guy. Benjamin Harrison.
Our 23rd president.
According to my grandma, he's a relative of mine.
They look identical, don't they?
No comment. This size of photograph is known as a cabinet card because it was large enough that you put in your cabinet, and if you're sitting on your sofa in your parlor, somebody could see it without squinting. Cabinet cards today are actually relatively common. I've gone to book and photography shows where some dealers have binders and binders. They can be of people, they can be of scenes, and they do remain relatively durable.
Is that his signature?
Okay, well, there are two questions I have to answer first. Sometimes when these were printed up, the signature of the person was printed on at the same time. So I have to make sure that this is actually signed in ink. So I'm just gonna look through here. Yes, and it does appear to be signed in ink. It's not a printed on signature. Now, the second question is it actually the signature of President Benjamin Harrison? And I brought along some examples here. And there are a few things I look for with the Benjamin Harrison. First, there's about a 30-degree slant on a signature. So I'm gonna come over here and look. And the slant is about 30 degrees to the right, which is the way it is here. He usually signed B-E-N-J and then Harrison in full afterwards. And he has this funny little blip in the middle of the B. Now, if you look carefully, you see that little blip in the B, which is similar to right over here.
What do you think?
Well, after looking at it, Rick, I do believe this was signed by President Benjamin Harrison himself.
Oh, wow.
Okay, sweet.
Oh, wow, that's great.
So what do you think it's worth?
Well, there is one little condition with this. So if you see along here, there are all those extra lines. I don't think this is a first-generation photograph. In a first-generation photograph, the lines are very, very sharp. What some photographers did is they would take photographs of previous photographs and keep reproducing it that way. This is probably second or third generation, which makes it worth a little bit less. I do think a fair retail price for this would probably be about $1,250.
Wow. I didn't think it would be worth that much. That's great.
Yeah, people who collect presidents and presidential signed photographs would have an interest in it. They're not common items by any stretch of the imagination. It's a nice little piece of American history here.
Yeah, it really is. Wow.
Hey, thanks for coming in, man.
Anytime, Rick.
Appreciate
Nice
it,
to see you
man.
again, Corey. Good luck with
Thank
it.
you. So,
So $500, no problem.
can you go a little bit higher?
I'll give you like $700 for it. That's the best I could do on it.
Really? Could you do 8?
Really? You just wanted 5, and now I'm offering you 7.
Right.
I have to frame it up. I have to do some other things.
Could you do 750?
I guess we really shouldn't have called Stewart in, huh?
Yeah, yeah, I'll give you the 750.
It's a deal. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, you want to write her up, son?
Come with me.
I feel that we settled on a really good price of $750. I feel that that was a fair price. It's all about the Benjamins.
I have this big espresso machine outside. Can someone give me a hand with it?
Because this guy needs help getting the espresso machine out.
Get your big ass outside and help him, dude.
I decided to go in the pawn shop today to sell my Astra Mega 1 espresso machine. My grandparents own a donut shop, and the clients just aren't into espresso, so they gave it to me. I have no use for it. It's too big for my house, so looking to get rid of it.
Tell me a little bit about it.
This thing's practically brand new, commercial grade. It's top of the line. Puts out about 240 cups an hour. Also, I have this grinder, commercial grade grinder.
Why don't you come around here and show me how the thing works?
Okay.
I don't know much about coffee makers at all, but I do know that I've seen Astras in just about every high-end restaurant I've been in. So, I mean, they've got to be worth something.
The espresso comes out here. You got your steamer here for milk, hot water here,
All right.
and you're ready to go.
This is sweet, big house.
I'm gonna find you a new job with it. You're gonna be running the Gold and Silver coffee shop.
Probably wake the old man up with all that espresso.
Yeah, probably.
I already make coffee every morning. With this thing, I can make it in no time.
What are you looking to do with it, man? Pawn it or sell it?
I'm looking to sell it.
And how much are you trying to get?
4,500.
The only way you're gonna get 45 out of this thing is if this thing prints money, man. It's in good shape, but it's still used. And I can buy an Astra Mega 1 for around $1,500 on the internet.
So what are you thinking?
I'm thinking around $1,300 and I get the grinder.
How about 15 with the grinder?
I can jump it up to $1,400, but that's really gonna be the best I can do.
No. I mean, it's too big to use in my house, so I guess I'll have to take it.
All right, buddy. Let's do some paperwork.
All right.
I've got a few friends in the restaurant business that I know would want to buy this, but in the meantime, I'm gonna just let Trump try to figure it out.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, how you doing?
Pretty good. When you walked in, I thought that was a cake.
I've got a diamond tiara,
Okay.
and it was formerly owned by Ida McKinley.
God, this is pretty amazing.
Who's Ida McKinley?
She was President McKinley's wife. There was stories about how he treated his wife better than any other person in Washington. If you said anything bad about his wife, you were immediately fired. I mean, there was just no two ways about it.
I'm here on behalf of my brothers. This piece was passed down to them. It was made by Dreiser & Son, a very prominent jewelry artist, and it's 220 diamonds. I'm asking $75,000. Would really like to stay pretty close to that number. 65, 70 might be able to do it.
Very, very interesting story. I'm surprised there hasn't been a book or a movie. She's was the only first lady with epilepsy, but it's a weird thing. I probably know more about Ida McKinley than I do about McKinley because I had epilepsy when I was a kid. As a kid with epilepsy, I researched people with the condition, and there was a lot of famous people. Julius Caesar, Napoleon, Edgar Allan Poe, and Ida McKinley. So I'm really interested in this piece. Basically, what we have a tiara that these things bolt onto.
Right, correct.
Okay? But also on the back, you have these little clips like this, so they could be a brooch also.
Exactly.
All right, now, it's really nice work, I'll tell you that. I mean, it seems from the time period You know, just intrinsic value here, diamonds and gold, you have like $6,000 or $7,000.
Wow, okay.
So what do you want to do with this?
I'd like to sell it. It's been passed down to my 3 brothers, and it's something that's kind of hard to split into 3s.
Okay, so they stuck you with the job of trying to find someone to buy it?
Exactly, exactly.
What were you looking to get out of it?
$75,000.
I really, really like it. It's just putting a value on it is difficult.
But it's a multifaceted piece.
I agree with you. There's a lot more here than just diamonds and gold. It's got a story with it.
Right.
It belonged to a celebrity. So let me call my buddy Greg up. He deals in just really elaborate vintage jewelry. He will look at it, and we will try and figure something out. Okay?
Looking forward to it.
I love this piece. I know it's worth more than the parts. The question is, how much more?
Oh, there it is.
It's like the crown jewels of the United States.
It's an interesting looking piece. I'm the owner of Fred Layton. We specialize in vintage and antique jewelry, and we help people understand jewelry in the context of historical periods and also understand value. Late 1800s, you saw a lot of jewelry in nature motifs, a lot of bird feathers, wings. Pieces like this were quite popular. The diamonds are fine quality for the period. They're what you would expect to see. The idea that this was convertible and has the fittings for both the brooch and also the tiara, and I think that's kind of neat. So the question becomes, what do we know about the provenance? How can we substantiate the provenance of the piece itself?
It's seen in this official White House First Lady photograph. This is one of the events that was going on at the McKinley Museum, and it's featured there.
Well, certainly it does link in a fairly official way this piece to Ida McKinley. You know, how much value that adds it's a little bit of open to interpretation.
What would it go in your store?
Well, I think in a retail store like Fred Layton, we would see this piece sell for $75,000.
Okay, sort of what he's wanting. So
Yeah.
we're gonna have to talk a little bit, but thanks, man. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. There are many collectors, people who have a fashionable sense of style, who would actually really appreciate that piece, both as a piece of jewelry and also because of its history.
So what are you thinking?
I'll give you 35 grand.
It's a lot of money. After hearing what he has to say, I think we've got to get more. You know, if it does retail for 75,
You're not gonna be able to retail it. I mean, what's your bottom dollar?
I think I've got to stick around up at the 75,000
There's
mark.
no way. There's no way. There's very, very few people in this world who can pull that money out of their pocket and buy a tiara.
I gotcha. What's the best you can do?
40.
I think we're probably a little bit too far apart at this point right now, but could I ever come back?
You can come back. You know what I mean?
The offer stand?
No. No, economies change.
Yeah,
I mean, they
I
really do.
understand.
I mean, I'd go 43. That would be it. 43 is a fair offer.
That's a great offer, and I appreciate it. I'll be back in touch with you.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
Thank you very much.
You know, I got a little lost in the history in this thing. I'd love to have it, but the most I can go was 43,000. Any more will just be gambling.